Come on, let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petrie. Consulting, so inspired.
Hello, my name is Crystal Petrie, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petrie Podcast. I have two very special guests with me today here to educate us and me about finding your purpose. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with...
Well, I'm Robert Martin with Pursuit of Purpose. Thank you for having us on your show.
Thank you for being here.
We're looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I'm Chuck Olliff, also with Pursuit of Purpose, and it is a privilege. Look forward to hearing what your thing is all about.
Thank you.
And how we can help.
Thank you very much. So obviously today we are talking about helping people find their purpose, which I feel like people just kind of, not all people, but some people just kind of go through life trying to find their purpose. So I'll start with you, Charles. What is finding your purpose? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think there's a host of things. I think, first of all, it's a bit of identity.
Okay.
You know, so and it could be familial, could be cultural, could be regional. Those could be initial influences, but eventually I find the things that make me happy. And because happiness is the result of where I accomplish most. And that's usually where it starts. So a lot of times when kids are young, we just get them involved with lots of things and we hope something kind of clicks. And it may be something specific, but at the very least, that they can start to identify as accomplishable people. And then over time, then as the influencers, we start influencing them maybe toward things where they can find lifelong fulfillment. And then eventually, I think purpose just grows from that. You know, and you can add in spiritual components and things like that as well.
Okay. And what about you?
Well, for me, I interpret that to me, for myself personally, I interpret that to be where my skills, gifts, talents, and fulfillment cross paths.
Okay.
Where I find my most fulfillment and it aligns with what I am gifted and talented at. That's where I find my purpose. And oftentimes the question is, well, how do you help somebody else find that for them? Yeah, sure, it's fine for you. That sounds great. But how do you draw that out of somebody else?
Correct.
Well, our entire practice is centered around questions. So it is almost an art form to practice the art of the question, the concept of questioning everything. In fact, one of our taglines is "What if?" or "Question everything."
Yes.
And through the facility of properly and strategically asked questions, we draw out the inner inspiration and fulfillment and skill sets of our clients and guests through that process. It's a lot of fun.
How does someone start the journey of trying to find their purpose? I know that you say you start with questions, but what would those questions be?
Well, the way you ask that question is actually the perfect beginning. The question of how. How is, in my mind, one of the most perfect ways to begin a question. When you ask the question how, you immediately create a teacher in the other person. So if I were to ask you, how did you get here today, Crystal? You immediately begin to build a list in your head.
Yes.
Well, first I got up in the morning, and then I did this, and this,
nothing
and you
happens
made this
without
list.
coffee. And then,
Yes. And then the questions that we don't like to ask is like the question of why. You don't ask somebody, why are you here? Well, that answer is going to be entirely subjective. It's not going to be truth-based.
But isn't finding your purpose subjective?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So then we ask, well, how did you arrive here? Not here physically, but how did you arrive here? And oftentimes the journey to the answer of that question will actually bring out an inspiring thought in them that exposes, like I said before, the path where their skills, talents, and fulfillment cross. And often it's not a matter of starting that journey. You're already on it. You just may not have an awareness.
Okay.
We innately want to find that place of fulfillment and production.
Yes.
We want to find a place of creativity where we can give to our community, give to our world from what's within us. We're built that way, right?
Yes.
We're built with an abundance inside of us that we have this yearning to give. And you have to deny that to get off the path, right? So you're on the path already.
Okay.
So you didn't really get off of it.
So speaking of the word denial, which is an excellent word, if I look for these opportunities to deny self, and I'm not talking self-loathing like I'm no good. I'm talking, okay, how can I give? How can I pour myself into somebody else? And so I'm not only am I contributing to hopefully their better good, but I'm creating this void inside of myself that only creation can fill. And I cannot grow if I don't give. And so a lot of what we do when we're individually and in groups and other types of settings, we're counseling and coaching, we're in some subtle way or another, we're encouraging people, how can you serve others? However that is. And so there's not a company that doesn't have a customer. That's how it works.
Right.
Well, there's one, even if it's indirect, even if I'm in our particular region, even if I'm refining oil to a more refined product, somebody's going to use it. And if I think of it in those ways, a lot of times we work with a lot of medical communities. It tends to be a draw for us a little bit for some reason or another. Well, it's been a pleasure to see these folks at different levels of medical professionalism keep that understanding that this is somebody's mother. This is somebody's father. This is somebody dropped them off.
Somebody's daughter, somebody's sister.
Yes.
And a family member dropped them off with the anxiety that I'm going to hand them over to you and they're going to be in good hands. And I thought, well, that's inspirational to me, at least, for sure. And I think others as well. So where can I give? It's about the giving, but I can't give what I don't have. That's the other side of it. I have to always be developing, like you mentioned earlier, being a lifelong learner. Okay, well, that constant consumption, you're not doing that really for your own ego. I'm doing that to have something to share. And the beauty of your genius, and you're a very intelligent person, the beauty of your genius is that will be refined into a helpful product.
Absolutely. Okay, so why, Charles, is it important for people to know their purpose? Can't you just live life without knowing what your purpose is?
Well, my first response to that is that since it's an ever refining search, it's an ever refining gift. So part of, I think, the product of knowing a purpose, and purposes evolve like seasons of our life. We have dozens and dozens of seasons. And so my purpose today may not have been my purpose 10 years ago.
Correct.
It may have evolved from that. But as long as it's refining, then the gift is refining. And it may be for a specific person or purpose in that moment. But that's what I have to be kind of ready for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for you, Robert, why do you think, is it important for people to know their purpose? Can't I just live my life?
Well, how would that go?
I don't know.
Exactly. So typically people are always in search of something.
Yes.
So I ask people a lot of times, especially if they come in on an individual basis or even our corporate customers, I'll ask them to look at that, our name, Pursuit of Purpose, and tell me what the most important aspect of that is.
I would say the pursuit.
I would not disagree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if that's the most important part, then is knowing the purpose definitively all that important?
Oh, I don't know, because the journey, the pursuit is so important, but you also need to know what you're pursuing.
You need a direction.
Yes.
So I would agree with you. You do need a direction, a focused place to put your energy towards an endeavor. So that's the purpose. And that purpose is seasonal. I challenge people that thought. So oftentimes we find ourselves in a rut, a lifelong rut sometimes, especially in our area. We find a lot of people that were brought up in a household that their parents might have worked in a plant. So they inherited this belief that I'm going to grow up, I'm going to go work in a plant, I'm going to hate it, and then I'm going to retire. And then I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yes.
Well, where's the purpose in that?
Yes.
What are they building that's giving back generationally? Well, I'm going to build a retirement. I'm going to leave that to my kids. Yeah, but what did you really produce? What did you create? Was there anything to it? Is it really life lived? If it was lived resentfully, with that feeling?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have that focus, something driving you that you know you're creating something more, giving something more than yourself, what's the point? Right? So we endeavor to inspire people to see in themselves just how full of opportunity, just how full of creation that they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way, like he was saying, that the only way to do that is to give from within yourself. And once you give, there's a really cool thing about us as humans. The way we're created is when you give, it's impossible to create a void. Every time you give, you're refilled with more than what you were giving out. So every time you develop the practice of giving, you have more to give.
Okay. So do the two of you push back against the notion that says you give until you have nothing left to give?
It's impossible.
So
if you're giving from a place of expectation in return, then you're not giving. That is not giving.
The two contrasting words I often use in counseling and coaching are the words altruism versus benevolence.
Okay.
So altruism is give and receive. And that's okay in, say, a professional setting. If I give time and talent, they pay me. Okay, that's agreeable. But those resources, if you will, that's more like self-care. I do self-care, which produces some inner product, and that's going to be strength, confidence, knowledge, maybe even money. To do what? To care for those. And you can fill in the blank as to whoever those. That's where benevolence comes in. Benevolence is 100% give. There is no expectation of exchange.
That's
at
right.
all. So that, which is different than selfish.
Right.
Selfish is just collecting, for my own self-interests. And then somebody else, though, has to make up that difference. That's a misunderstanding of selfishness. We think, oh, it's all about you. Well, that means you're having to take from somebody. And I believe I read that in the book. I think taking is wrong. Receiving is right.
Right.
But taking is wrong.
Yes.
So but anyway, that's maybe two words that can be used by folks that are, tuning in today. That difference between altruism and benevolence. And when it's misapplied, because people feel like they've been taken advantage of.
I was going to say you can feel it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You can absolutely feel it.
And there's a huge difference between being a receiver and being a taker. Huge difference.
Yes.
And you mentioned, as he referenced earlier, that you're a lifelong learner. You stay curious.
Yes.
Obviously, you're asking us all these questions.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Can you learn too much? Can you stop learning?
I think you stop learning when you die. Because I feel like every single day you are learning something, whether you choose to do that or not.
You
always
cannot
learning.
stop learning as long as there's breath in your body.
Absolutely.
And your mind is sound. You can't stop learning.
Yeah.
It's how we're
I
built.
agree.
So if that's the case, then can you limit your giving? Because if you're constantly taking in, is it impossible? Can you run out? Can you run out?
Well, not based on the definition that you two have given. You cannot run out, because if you're giving with no expectation in return, then you're always being refueled.
That's exactly right. So that's what we endeavor to inspire in our clientele. That spirit, the spirit of real giving, the spirit of real creation.
Right.
You can't create without that.
What about past experiences?
Okay.
How can past experiences hurt or help someone's purpose or their pursuit of purpose?
Okay. I'm going to let you take 2 or 4.
2 or 4?
To me or for me.
Okay. So then the question is, I get what he's saying. It took me a second.
Okay.
So the past experiences, were they done to you or for you?
Oh, that's an excellent follow-up question. Let's go with the 2.
So if they're done to you,
Yes.
then what happened as a result? How did you arrive at the understanding that they were done to you? How did you get there?
Okay, let's just say a child that's an adult now,
Okay.
trying to find their purpose.
Okay.
So things that their parents did to them.
Let's use a specific example.
Okay.
I'm asking you
A
to
specific
throw something
example.
at me. Go negative. Go as bad as you
You
like.
know what? We'll use a personal for me. So my father was murdered when I was 2.
Okay.
So how does that past help me now pursue my purpose.
So how do you feel about fatherless children?
Heartbroken.
Heartbroken
Yes.
or compassionate?
Oh, sympathy, compassion, empathy, all of them.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what does that give you an opportunity to do that would be different from someone who had a father?
It gives me real lived experiences that I can impart and help them with if they want that help.
It gives you an ability to connect with them in a way that they wouldn't accept from someone who didn't have the similar or same experience.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yes.
Okay. So in that regard, did you have a choice in your father leaving you when you were 2?
No.
Did you cause it in any way?
No.
Was it done to you or for you?
Oh my God. I have no idea. It was done to me.
Was it? That would indicate that you're a victim.
Aren't I?
But you're not. It's only a matter of perspective. You have been given a very unique opportunity that through your life experience, you can now connect with others who don't understand what happened in their childhood. And you can bring them perspective that can really help them. And without your own experience, you wouldn't be able to.
That is true.
And what do we call the most experienced person in the room, Crystal? We call them experts.
You are an expert.
Yes. That's
Through your very own experience, you are an expert.
Okay.
You are not a victim.
Yes. So
That's a good, okay.
Were you a victim for a moment? And then moments can be this.
Were you victimized
for a moment?
For a moment.
I feel like I've been that victim. I mean, since I'm sitting with you, I'm rethinking it, but I feel like I've been a victim of that my entire life.
Okay.
But the perspective was just never allowed to change.
Correct.
You've been operating with the tools that you were developed with through childhood, and no one ever brought this message to you, have they?
No, not at all.
So the next question after, and people come in often with issues, and I'll say, how do you feel? You know, they'll use some synonym of victimized, you know, by a spouse or whomever, or a boss or whatever, or in this case, something much more tragic. And I said, okay, but you can stay there for a moment, but we're not going to stay there long. Because I can't let you. Otherwise I'm not doing my job. If I just sit here and commiserate with you, well, then nobody's
There's no
growing.
healing there.
There's no healing.
Yes.
So the next question is, who is most to blame for me remaining a victim?
Would it be myself?
Yes.
Well, would it be?
Would it be? Okay. I think you just answered the
I'm
question.
supposed to be interviewing the two of you.
You just press play. We're just rolling the tape.
I feel like as a child, I will say no. It was not. But as an adult, I will say yes.
So you made a conscious choice somewhere deep inside to say, I will not remain this way. And you
I haven't made that choice.
I
think you're pretty close. If you haven't, you might have just done it.
I think I've just lived with it.
Or maybe from it. Yeah, and definitely went through it.
So what if, because of that experience, you now have the ability to empower that child that represents you to have that knowledge that it wasn't done to them and that they're not a victim while they're still in their childhood? What if you could bring that message to them?
That would be powerful.
How impactful might that be?
Very much.
How many children are right now in foster care or in the system in some way or another that bear similar experiences to you in your childhood? How many of them could you touch just with a conversation?
That's absolutely
countless.
True. Yes.
Countless. It's indefinite.
I may or may not know somebody that knows about those kids. So let me know after the show and we'll hook you up if you want to do it.
Yes.
So the 3-part question is, am I a victim? For a moment, sure.
Okay.
Who is most to blame? Okay. For me remaining a victim.
Okay.
Okay. And then the third question is, what will I do? And I will do a host of things. I will learn, I will grow, I will read, I will mature, and then I will do the ultimate. I'll pass it on.
You will build a legacy.
You will build a legacy.
What?
Yes.
Wow, this is so good. And we just got started.
Okay.
Look at y'all unpacking my stuff. Okay, what is the difference between passion and purpose, Charles?
Okay. Well, I think passion has more of an inner draw when I hear passion.
Okay.
And there are inner spirits inside, joy and love and those things. So passion to me is more like an engine. It's more like the drive. It's more like the rocket fuel, if you will. I have a passion for this. Now, I think it once applied to purpose, that's where we really start seeing these maximum gains, and then we don't want to stop. We're in passion now. I just want to keep going. I just want to keep going.
Right.
I want to do what I can do to make a difference in this particular pursuit, I presume. So to me, there's passion and purpose, maybe hopefully by compare and contrast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that you can have a purpose, Robert, without having a passion, or do you need both?
No, I think passion is more emotionally related, and it can swing up, down, sideways according to the environment and surroundings, the people you're around. I really believe that passion can be influenced heavily by mood and things. Purpose is not about passion. Purpose is about direction. Purpose is about focus. Purpose is about belonging. Purpose is about your gifts, your talents, the things that suit you and that you're suited to. It's not just passion. That you definitely can have purpose without passion. You'll become passionate at times and less passionate at other times, but passion will fade. It's a fact of life. But purpose can be seasonal, but it doesn't fade. It is.
Okay, so I'm assuming that maybe you both have seen the Will Smith movie Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, yes.
Okay, great movie.
Great movie.
Great movie. So with the pursuit of happiness, I feel like that's the pursuit of emotions. So
It's a very emotional movie.
Is that like something tangible that people should strive for, like the pursuit of emotions, or should it be the pursuit of something more tangible that you can touch and hold on to?
I don't think it's necessarily a matter of tangibility. I do believe it's something of legacy, just like we talked about with you. I believe typical successful purposes are always going to create a legacy aspect, something that's going to live beyond and be greater than just one individual. And that's something that was illustrated in that movie.
Correct.
He didn't just experience all these emotions and that was the end of it. He was actually creating a pathway into success, his type of success, his dream success, which then created a legacy from his son watching him pursue passionately his purpose. And then his son was then inspired that he could do anything. They went from living in a shelter, being completely homeless and destitute, selling bone density scanners, to being money traders, to being stock traders, successful, credible people in a high-end business world. And that showed the relentless pursuit of purpose, regardless of passion. Because if you watch that movie, it shows the highs and the lows and then the lower lows. And he was dedicated. He showed no wavering, even at the risk of losing possession of his child. He knew this was his focus. This was his purpose. So that actually is a great example to show the opposite of passion, the need for passion, because he was at times so discouraged that he questioned his own resolve.
He did.
But he knew this is the direction I should be going. And he was committed to it. He saw it through.
He did. That's a great movie.
It really
was a
was.
great Will Smith movie. Do you feel, Charles, that if you pursue your purpose and you achieve your purpose, then happiness will always follow?
Well, I'll ask it this way. Okay. How do people get happy? And I'll help the answer if I need to.
Help the answer because I'm going scientific with the release of endorphins and things like that.
Well, happiness is like fruit. It's a result. Happiness is the fruit of achievement and accomplishment.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. You know who wrote that?
Who?
Me. I teach. No, I know. Thank you, friends.
Oh my
For about a quarter century, I've done a grief class, and they came in. They go,
Okay.
Chuck, I'm just so sad. I don't want to be sad anymore. I go, well, what's the opposite of sad? And they go, well, happy. I go, how do you get it? And then all this group of beautiful, mostly older people are looking at me like, I don't know. And I said, well, let's come up with our own definition. And we did.
Okay.
So happiness and, of course, even self-esteem
Mhm.
are the fruits of achievement and accomplishment. So in pursuit, I'm pursuing in some, I can measure if I want to, which is fine. You know, we tend to be very measuring rhythmic people. What am I going to do this week? What am I going to do today? What am I going to do this hour? Okay, that's fine. And at the end of the day, I try to ask myself a handful of questions. What are some things that went well? What are some things that could have gone a little better? And what will I do differently to make them better tomorrow? And I try to do that every single day. And you probably have a calendar. I know Rob and I have a list of things to do. Well, I can look back and go accomplished, and then deposits are made. Therefore, I am having these little bitty drops of happiness inside of me, you know, and if that keeps going, especially in a pursuitable direction, well, then I think there's your compliment. That's how they work in concert.
Oh, wow. That was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And you're sitting with the author himself.
That was so special.
I'm kidding, friends, but we did produce that. So, yeah.
Okay. What about spirituality and faith?
Okay.
What does that have, if anything, have to do with pursuing your passion and pursuing your purpose?
Okay. The question to me. Okay. Well, I believe that we are definitely spiritual creatures. Okay. And it just depends on where folks come from. Personally, I believe I didn't start here. I was put here, and I will return. Okay. And so that spirit lives inside of me. And so when I study the giver of that spirit, and I ask the giver in curious fashion, what do you want from me? And I believe he's curious as to how far I can take whatever gifts he's given me. That's the curiosity of creation. I started this creation. Let's see how far it can go. And every time I'm depositing into that pursuit of growth, that is a spiritual moment. And that's not necessarily, we can get into the more religious. I don't believe that's where you're going. I believe to me, that's spiritual, you know, that I am honoring the gift.
Okay, Charles, Robert, what about life setbacks and life challenges? How does that help someone pursue their purpose?
So how do you get lemonade?
From lemon, sugar, and water.
But how do you get it out of the fruit?
Oh, you have to like squeeze it really hard.
Yes. Do you think the lemon enjoyed that?
I'm sure not.
So just like us, if you want to find out the best parts that's in us, we got to go through some discomfort.
Oh, no one wants to do that.
We got to be squeezed a little bit.
No
great achievement, none, have been ever accomplished without sacrifice. So when you find yourself in a trial, know that it's for a season, and know that there will come a reward, a purpose for that trial. The trial happens to build you, to prepare you, to be able to handle the success. Without the trial, you can't handle the success. And that's why we go through so many things that we go through, is because we're built for something. We all are. We're built for things. They may be seasonal, but whatever you're built for, it will require a certain amount of character, a certain type of internal fortitude. And in order to know with confidence that you possess it, it has to be tested.
That leads me to another question, another thought. So in today's time, people are always saying that like the generation, I guess Z or X, whatever it is, or like, and this is not fact, they are a weak generation because the parents are trying to prevent them from going through things, from struggling like maybe they did. Is that helping our children, or is that hurting our children, trying to keep them from life challenges and hurts and setbacks?
Well, do you mind? Is that for me? You're looking at me. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the way I see it. And as you said, not fact, it's perspective.
Yes.
It's very subjective.
Yes.
But as a parent, I want my children to become independent, successful, productive adults and members of society. I don't have the ability, the power to protect them forever. I'm going to pass away. I'm going to expire. My time on this earth is going to end before theirs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be gone and they're going to be left without me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I protected them from all the bad things and then I leave them, who's going to protect them then? So the bad things are coming. They'll either come in my lifetime where I can help them.
Yes.
Or they'll come after I've gone and they'll be all on their own to deal with whatever comes. So in my perspective, I want my children that I'm responsible for to experience discipline, structure, and understand how to deal with adversity, because it's coming whether I like it or not. It's not within my power to prevent it.
Yeah.
You can helicopter them all you want, but at some point in time, that big old world out there is going to take over. And if you didn't prep them right, they're going to fall victim to whatever environment or circumstances come their way.
And I feel like if they haven't been prepped and taught how to handle that, then it comes in such a way that is just catastrophic for them.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
The hardest thing is to learn all the lessons at one time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice to have incrementally learned those lessons?
A little bit here,
Yes.
a little bit here, a little bit here.
And build that stacked confidence on all those small learned lessons instead of all of them being dumped on you at one time. The weight of the lessons is the same. And the lesson to be learned, the end result is the same.
But it probably
But the experience is not the same. Right?
Yes.
So that's what I see. When I see the helicopter parenting, they're not helping. They're creating generations that are going to experience pain in a whole different way. And it's not good.
Okay. This has been so good. I know I keep saying that, but this has been so good. Charles, what would you say are some misconceptions about purpose? I feel like just asking that question, that most people feel like when they find their purpose, it's like money or fame or celebrity or something like that.
Oh, I think you just hit on some misconceptions because one of the first things that a lot of those people who get a lot of money and a lot of fame very quickly, whatever, is they oftentimes we'll say forget, and that's giving them the benefit of the doubt that may not even had it to begin with, that nothing happens in a vacuum. We always have to work with somebody else. That's just how it works. I mean, I put it succinctly and not trying to be too sarcastic. I don't raise my own hamburgers, but I'm glad that guy does.
Yes.
Because, and I'm willing to buy his hamburgers, if you will. So I'm thankful for that. And so, yeah, money may come and that's fine, but at some point I have to have at least that general appreciation that this happened in concert with somebody else, who cared enough about what they did in order to contribute to what I'm now doing. And I hope there's a vice versa. I hope I'll be able to give to them as well. And that happens. We have folks that come in and see us, for professional reasons, and it's neat to know what they do. And oftentimes I counsel very few counselors. Okay, a few maybe, but mostly it's people who get to do all these other neat things. And then when we get to ask the curious question, how'd you get into that? And the next thing you know, it's like an interview. So I hope that helps.
Yes, absolutely. So let's talk about living your life to the fullest. What does that mean, living your life to the fullest?
Okay. Well, I guess to me, it would be at every achievable acquisition, is taking time and energy to absorb everything I can from those experiences, whether it's enjoying a good song or going and visiting family. I have family that lives in Colorado. Well, climbing to the top of a 10,000 foot peak and just taking it all in, those sorts of things, and all little points in between, is having that sense of appreciation, I think, is fulfilling, and even if it's a struggle, I appreciate the fact that I'm being put to the test. All right. And what are we tested over? Temptations come from the outside in. A test comes from the inside out. All right, let's see what I got. Because guess what tomorrow is going to be? Better. Guaranteed it's going to be better because I'm a little smarter today than I was yesterday. Imagine where I'll be tomorrow. To me, that's fulfillment.
Charles, do you think people should be happy when trials and tribulations come their way? Because I feel like they should not be.
Well, the book I read said to consider it pure joy whenever we face trials of any kinds, because the testing of our faith develops perseverance, which is hanging in there.
Yes.
Well, that reference is not the faith in the Creator. It's faith in myself. Well, where's that going to come from? Taking risk is where we get the reward. I don't get it from just, the trophy parent. I get it from taking the risk, I mean, I enjoyed those moments, as I enjoyed when my kids had victories, but I also enjoyed them when they didn't, because then I could ask effective questions. Well, what do you think went well? What do you think could have gone better? I didn't make this up last month. My kids are in their 30s and 40s, so I was able to ask those questions all along. And I hope that's helped them as now they're in business and management and now parenting and those sorts of things too.
Okay. Robert, the same question to you. What is living your life to the fullest? What does that mean to you?
Well, first, I want to be present. One thing that I endeavor to do, and I wasn't always this way. I've been a huge failure in this throughout my life at different times. But put the phone down. Be in the moment. Enjoy every interaction that you have with another person. Receive what they have to give, and then give everything that you have that you can. And I believe that it's incumbent upon me that in every interaction that I encounter, I leave more than I take. And if I can do that, then I feel like I have lived life to the fullest from my personal standpoint. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the other person's past or experiences or expectations, I feel my responsibility is to give more than I get.
What would you say are some tangible things that people can do to live their life to the fullest? I know one of the things you said, Robert, was put your cell phone down. What are some other tangible ways that people can start living their life to the fullest?
When you say tangible, that's a tough one because it's very specific. It means it has to be a thing.
Yes.
But something that we, a practice that we espouse is action. Always take action. It's great to have a thought. It's great to discuss philosophy and things like that. But all of these things without some kind of action that creates momentum, they're worthless without that. So do something. Don't sit still. Do something. Create something with someone else. I mean, does that sound right?
Yeah.
Even if it's something silly. We were involved one time in a conference where they had us use pipe cleaners and straws. And it wasn't about the pipe cleaners and straws. It was about the interaction between the people. And it created a bonding. It was an amazing experience. When we were with strangers, we had no idea who these people were. But now if we cross paths with these people again, we have a true bond.
You do.
We went through an experience together.
Even a failure, because it didn't work. Other people built these great towers. I think they might have been engineers. Which
Right.
is a little key.
Absolutely.
Well, something else I wanted to say is that, we talk about failure, and you asked earlier, I don't think you asked me, I think you asked him, but I'm going to go back to it. You asked if people should be happy in their failures.
Yeah.
So even if you're not happy in the moment of the failure, if you can't appreciate the failure, you'll never appreciate the success. You can't appreciate the value of the win if you don't understand and appreciate the value of the loss. One of the greatest basketball players of all time, a man by the name of John Wooten,
I thought you was going to say Michael Jordan.
One of them.
I mean coaches. I'm sorry. I meant to say coaches.
Yeah.
One of the greatest coaches of all time was Coach Wooten from UCLA.
Yes.
And one thing that he remarked about was he wanted to win, but he hated after a win. He hated the experience after the win because there was nothing to learn. He couldn't teach his players, and he had a hard time learning after the win. But after a loss, everybody still had a hunger. What did we do wrong? What can we do better? What do we need to practice? And they all had this fire about them that they wanted to overcome the loss. But after a victory, what is there to do?
Yeah.
So the defeats, the failures, they all hold the greatest opportunity. You don't win more after a victory.
Okay. What about this? And this is for both of you. So whoever wants to jump in here. Is a person better because of their defeats and their failures, or are they better because of their successes and their wins?
They're better if they learn the lessons because of their failures.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not just about the defeat or the failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the process. You're better if you can grasp and glean from the failure to achieve the success. That's, I mean, I don't know another way to put that.
No, it was perfect.
Just the old school redneck.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that was ideal, and we're going to have victories,
Yes.
It's going to happen. And I don't mind giving people a moment to go, yay,
Absolutely.
and go get your snow cone from the stand, whatever your victory or reward is.
Mm-hmm.
I like reward.
Yes.
In my one of my classes, I teach what I call the cycle of grief, and so you go through all the traditional type of stages, whatever, and then but you have the achievement, and then at some point after the achievement, I said, now take a moment and go reward yourself. Whatever your reward is, go get you a Blizzard, go whatever, just sit and have a cup of coffee and try to think about nothing. And I know you feel like you're wasting time, but you earned it. But then get back to work.
Right.
Because your natural evaluator, which is what our minds are always doing, is it warm, is it cold? Am I comfortable, am I uncomfortable? We're always evaluating. Well, if we kind of get in tune with that, that means we're always looking for ways to make things better. Mm-hmm. And what do we call people who do it better every chance they get? We call them winners. That's what we call them. Because they're always getting better.
They're all, yeah.
Yes. And then of course, it's what do you do with the victories, which is what you were saying earlier about some of your childhood experience. I'm going to teach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pass it on. So John Wooden, who probably played basketball in the 20s and 30s, he said, I've learned these lessons. Now I'm going to train these young people. And eventually he wrote books. So he trained lots of people to have victories in life. But I'm going to start by using this silly sport where you put the round ball in a round hole. It's not about the sport. Mm-hmm. It's about all the intangibles that come from it.
Charles, what about the people who don't get the lesson from the loss? Mm-hmm. Is that a wasted loss, or did the people waste their time?
If they don't get the lesson from the loss,
get the lesson,
I do think they wasted an opportunity. Yes. And there could be a lot of contributing reasons from their past why they weren't able to see it that way. Because now they walk around with this bitterness and these things. Bitterness is the byproduct of dwelling on what you don't have. Oh, that's sad, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I'd rather dwell on what I do have and then try to add to it. And so unfortunately, they had these lifelong lessons where they learn, and now they're walking around these angry, hurt people. And that just seems so sad. What a terrible existence. So what about them? It doesn't seem very hopeful, and hopefully that's what the three of us are doing with our personal ambitions, is to try to change that.
Right. Do you believe, this is something that I believe, do you believe that if you do not learn the lesson in the loss or in the tribulation, that you repeat it until you learn the lesson? Or is that just me?
I could see where I could put myself in similar situations, if not same situations, inadvertently. I don't want to.
Right.
And I'm sure people, to kind of put it in a common, vernacular, I'm sure people are like, I don't understand why this keeps happening.
Yes.
And so here we get a chance to influence, to say, well, why did it happen to begin with? And then to help them break it down, and that's where Rob's a master of the interview, the question, and people break it down even to a point of frustration. Then where we go, it's okay. Frustration's fine. That just means you've reached a place where you got to go a little deeper in your thinking and in your reasoning. And they almost always come out thinking differently. It's fun to watch.
Well, something that happens, if you don't mind me throwing this in there a little bit on the repeating thing.
Yes.
So you may not have to repeat it over and over again, but the reward from that success of learning the lesson won't be yours. So there's a sacrifice that goes with everything. If you're unwilling to learn the lesson, then you're going to be unable to receive the victory. That's the bottom line. So if you quit on the lesson, you may not have to repeat the lesson, but you've given up on whatever victory that was on the other side of that hill of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And more times than not, it was worth it had you proceeded and, stuck to it.
This was something we were talking about on the elevator, that we are a microwave generation. Like, people don't want to have to wait to get to the victory. We don't have to want to wait to get to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
We want it now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which, I mean, does that hinder our pursuit of purpose and hinder our pursuit of passion?
Mm-hmm.
Charles, what do you think?
I would think it would have an influence we really don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I think and it is about influence. It's not really about control. We're fans of people, either writers or people who write about folks who really didn't start seeing that fulfillment, all of those lanes come together until they were well into their 4th or 5th decade of life. And that's, men, women, and all throughout American history. And now some did get there earlier, and I hope they fully understood it. I can only presume so, but definitely those who had those seasons of just in and out, one of our greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, how many failures did he have at pursuing a career until it hit? Boy, once it hit, he changed the world,
And he had to lose those that were closest to him.
Yeah.
He did.
Like, what a horrible, and was it done to him or for him?
Oh my goodness.
Look at the generations that he changed.
Well, he definitely changed my generation as a Black female. So
but not just look at the culture that he impacted.
Mm-hmm.
And had he refused to accept the lesson that was given to him in what would seem like defeat and victimhood,
yes,
had he just stayed in that state, where would we be right now?
Yeah,
it's true.
He changed the course of not only American history, but world history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a history buff as well as an ultimate learner, but he writes that he did the things that he did at that time, not for the generation that was then, but for the generation that was coming much later.
Yes. And you can even put a plural on that, generations.
Yeah.
And we're still profiting from that.
We are.
As not just as a country, but as friends, as neighbors, as community.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
It is.
So how many of those trials and tribulations that you referenced did he have to go through in order to catch that higher thinking, like to see beyond the horizon, over that hill? As Rob referenced.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
It's
It's almost weirdly spiritual and impressive.
And his inspiration, how it impacted world history, without him and his dogged determination to his pursuit of his purpose, men like Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, people who have had global impact, their message wouldn't have been the same. It couldn't have been the same.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
And it wouldn't have been received. It would not have been received.
And he paid the price necessary to attain that victory because he learned the lessons from the things that were done in his life rather than receiving a victim's mentality and wallowing in it as though it was done to it.
That's true. That is absolutely true. So as a Black female, I am always grateful to Abraham Lincoln. I feel like every Black person probably is. But gratitude, which leads me to my next question, is gratitude, Robert, important when pursuing your passion and pursuing your purpose?
Probably one of the paramount tenets of anyone headed towards success would be gratitude. If you have if you don't possess a spirit of gratitude and act on that and behave in that way, you can never be the recipient of victory. You can't receive it. What does it mean to receive it? To receive anything, what does it mean?
To receive it?
To accept it, right? To take it, to take hold of it. So a person who doesn't possess an attitude of gratitude, anything you give them, how do they respond? If they're not grateful, they find fault in everything. They find something to complain about in everything. You could give them $1 million, they complain about it because it was not in the right denomination of purpose.
Yes.
So attitude is foundational, or gratitude is foundational,
Right.
in order to successfully pursue one's purpose.
Charles, how does someone cultivate gratitude? How do they cultivate joy in their pursuit?
Well, my hope is that at some point that maybe I'm thinking of words like entitlement and those things have to fail me. And then I usually am sitting in some version of rock bottom with maybe a good counselor, maybe it's somebody in my community church, neighborhood, whatever. And I'm in some state of despair. And then that person, hopefully and prayerfully, has the right, state of mind, preparedness to start asking the effective questions. Well, how do you think this happened? And then we start with assessing where we are, and then encouraging a gratitude, a gratefulness of the next bonus to come. I mean, I've been sitting with people who've been in great states of despair because of loss or whatever. And I said, well, let's just start with the basics. Is it likely that you will go hungry or homeless today? And they're like, well, no, I mean, I have a house. I mean, I got food in the fridge. I go, look at us. We're winning already, and they can be grateful for the fact that there's a bottle of water that they can, those sorts of things, but it may take being subjective to that one influential person, which eventually will become a community.
Do you think, Charles, that gratitude and joy, are those learned behaviors, or do we come here already with that?
Well, I think they're educed. I think they have to be drawn out. So to say we came here with them, yes, I think they're created inside of us, but they do have to be drawn out. And that's environment, and meaning friends and family and ministers and teachers and, coworkers or whoever. It asks those things to draw them out, and once they're drawn out, and we see them honestly, well, we want to keep doing that. Now I have an appetite for that experience. And so that's why I can even see joy in pain.
Can you see joy? Listen, I don't know. Can you see joy in pain? Maybe once you're out of the pain, you can look back and see the joy. Is that what you're thinking? Because clearly I don't, and this is just me thinking out loud. You can't see joy while you're in the midst of the pain.
You ever play a sport?
Yes.
What?
I ran track. I did basketball and volleyball.
So you never experienced pain in preparation for a game?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Well, why did you experience the pain?
Because I was.
What caused the pain?
Like the running and preparation for the.
So what caused you to do? What motivated you to do that to yourself?
The love.
Because you knew on the other side of this pain was victory.
Yes.
So you were willing to punish yourself? You mean you volunteered to put yourself through pain because you knew that the sacrifice would bring a reward?
Yes.
Oh, so you saw through the pain that it was going to produce a positive result.
Yes.
So you could put that on any scale. If I am experiencing pain, first of all, what's the cause? What's the cause? If it's bodily pain, your body's trying to tell you something. There's a cause. If I can figure out what the cause is, I can probably prevent catastrophe, right?
Yes.
So there's a positive to the pain.
Yes.
Can you see the positive to the pain?
I can see it.
So is any pain truly negative? Truly?
I mean, the way you're describing it, no. But I feel like in the midst of it, it's...
There is a condition that some very rare people have, okay? It's one of the most dangerous conditions that a human can have, and it's the lack of the ability to experience pain.
Wow.
Do you know that it is that they have the highest risk of mortally wounding themselves over anyone else?
Because they
can't feel it.
Yes.
It's the most dangerous thing in the world to be a human who can't experience pain in any way. What happens to a person who has numbed themselves emotionally?
Well, they can't feel pain.
But they can't relate to anyone else either.
That's true.
How can you maintain any relationship that is of any value without understanding or feeling pain? So can you see the positive through any pain?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is there.
it is
there.
a honor and a blessing when that phone rings and people are wanting to come in for services, because it's that person is about as healthy a person, even though they may think they're in a state of unhealth. They're really healthy because they have recognized pain. Pain is telling me something. Now, maybe it hurts so bad and I'm human and I'm a bit vulnerable and I can't see it. So they solicit help to basically learn it. Okay. And also begin. This is one phrase someone once used, if I can get led to understand it and understand what to do about it, I'll learn it and I'll live it. Well, they're being led by the pain. Now they're curious. Now they want to know, what can I do to make this pain stop? And typically they look externally, if I could just get him to stop or her to stop or whatever. But unfortunately, it doesn't ever work. I mean, what would cause that one person, let's say it's a marriage situation. Well, what would cause that one person to stop inflicting pain on them? Well, death. And what do we call death in marriage? Divorce. Yeah. And that's not what they want. They come here hoping to not. Most of the time, they come here hoping for better than that. Well, that means they're just going to have to start looking more inside, and become leaders, actually. And that's what we do. We do a lot of leadership training, and the leader has to become, or have a system to become, and keep becoming. And then eventually folks will just get right back in line. That's how they left for the promised land. I mean, that guy may be hard and harsh, but he seems to know where he's going.
He seems to know where.
Yeah. Or at least he talks like he does. And then, of course, eventually, they made it.
They did. He didn't, but they did.
But they did. That's right.
They did. Let's talk about relationships and the people we surround ourselves with. Okay. Does the company we keep help us live our lives to the fullest, or prevent us from living our lives to the fullest?
I believe there is a lot of power in our community and the company that we keep. Absolutely. And again, that's that I don't raise my own, food, if you will. And, but I think there's other components of that too. So yes, I think the company we keep is a very large influence. And so therefore we have to be better at assessing, and it may be what on the surface may seem like an adversarial relationship. I guarantee a lot of the champions that we were just referencing, if you go back and they talk about life in the day playing with that particular player, they're not always complimentary, but they said that's exactly what we needed to get to where we needed to go. Now they look back with a fondness. We are bonded in the struggle. But at the time, even say in war, maybe the guy that's leading our unit, he's not kind, but he's also trying to save our lives and get us out on the other end of this thing so we can live for another day. But in the moment, it may seem adversarial, but it's not really.
Robert, how do you assess if people are the right fit in your community? And once you determine, okay, this person is not a good fit in my community, how do you get them out of your community?
So explain first, if you wouldn't mind, what you mean by community.
Like your closest family, closest friend.
My circle.
Your circle, yes.
Okay. So the measurement that I work towards using, and I have a very small circle. Okay. Of the inner circle. Now there's an outer circle, and it's a lot more relaxed, but there are boundaries for those people. The inner circle is very small, and right now it consists of 4 people. 4 people. And I don't feel the need to expand it. Now you asked, how do I measure them? How do I let them in? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So how do you let them in? How do you assess, okay, these people are good in my life, or these people are not good in my life?
2 things. Can I give to them on a regular basis? And will they give to me on a regular basis? Not that it's a necessity, but there needs to be a correlation in that way, a reciprocation.
Right.
Not that I expect or require them to give to me, but can they? Do they have something to bring into my life that fits and is prosperous? And can I do the same for them? Like, that's the quickest way to describe it that I can think of as a litmus test to whether or not they belong in my inner circle. Do they have integrity? Do they do what they say what they do? Are they the same all the time? Even if they're not necessarily the greatest by all standards, are they the same all the time? You know, do we know what we're going to get? Are they of high character, high moral standards? Those are the measurements that I use for that inner circle. And like if I discover someone in my, let's say even the outer circle, because that's where most people come and go from, is the outer circle.
Mm-hmm.
Say I discover, you asked, how would I get them out?
Yes.
Well, that's not all that difficult.
Really?
Well, typically,
because you don't want to hurt people's feelings.
What do I care?
Or is that a
Are your
female
feelings?
thought?
Are you no? You're not going to like what I'm about to say. And, forgive me, audience, but your feelings aren't my problem. Your feelings are your choice. I don't have the power to trigger you. You have the power and choice to become triggered.
Okay.
You don't have to give that much credence or emotion to anything I say or do, unless I physically cause harm to you, which I'm not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, I can easily remove someone from that circle and feel no shame or blame because they crossed a boundary that I wasn't willing to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And that I maintain those boundaries out of respect for my other parts of the circle and the inner circle and myself. So I'm worth more than them crossing those boundaries, and their feelings are not my problem.
Yeah. That is a hard one, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's
But what makes it hard?
Because I keep going back to you don't want to hurt their feelings.
So what I hear you saying is that you're a people pleaser. Is that true?
I'm not.
You're not?
Which is crazy. I'm not, but I also don't want to hurt people.
Okay. Have you ever found yourself in a situation, or anybody in our audience ever found yourself in a situation? We'll help you out, friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Where you know you are and it may be an unenviable place. Nobody's jealous of what I have to do now, but I have to drop some truth on this person. Otherwise, they're gonna keep moving momentously in a direction, and they're gonna get hurt even worse if I don't say something to stop that momentum or ask very difficult questions. And then I even can have a sense of tolerance for the breakdown. And I learned that about tears. Tears are just indicators. Tears tell me that the brain's actually working. Okay, there is an emptiness that filled with emotion, and when I start dropping logic in this, if you think of it kind of like a hole with mud, which is water basically, and when I start dropping reason and logic and getting the thinking going, that's like putting dirt in that hole. And as the water starts to push out because I'm leveling the ground again, well, that's tears. So tears, even in my office, tears tell me we're working. Things are processing. So it's not purposeful. I have no intent on hurting anybody in this world, but I understand people may have a moment of hurt while they're healing. That's like rehab. If you've ever had, you probably had to rehab some injuries as an athlete before, my knees and my ankles. And you're a volleyball player. That hurts. I think that sport hurts almost as much as football, to be honest with you. And they don't even let you wear pads hardly. Right. But so there's moments you're sitting on the couch with ice and other things, you're stretching and you're like, but I tolerate because I know that there's something better to come. So I really just embrace it. That goes back to Rob's explanation of pain. So sometimes we have to do it with other people, but I believe that means we care. If I didn't care, I'd just walk around you.
Yeah, it's true.
And we're not really walk around people. I think typically we all want to help in some way. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about life coaches. So the two of you, Charles and Robert, are life coaches. Is that kind of the title that you hold?
Some people call us that.
What do other people call you?
We get called many things.
Okay.
My wife has a whole list of things she calls me.
It may not be published.
And I think my kids have a list of things they call me in private. But no, we fit into that category. Leadership trainers, life coach, consultants. We fall into that category. We endeavor to fit the need of the moment for whatever client is before us. So what were you going to ask about life coaching?
I was going to ask, what is a life coach?
That's a wonderful question. There's a lot of different kinds of life coaches. Okay. Some of them teach to a specific craft or profession. Some of them teach to emotional type ends, spiritual type ends. There's all sorts of them, but we focus on the coaching of thought, teaching people how to think, not what to think. You make your own choices about what to think, but we hope to expand people's minds to learn how to think, how to become lifelong learners, how to become curious, how to master the concept of questioning everything. And then another specialty of ours is leadership coaching, leadership training. Does that answer?
Yes.
Enough? Okay.
Absolutely. So, Charles, how does someone know if they need a life coach or when to call you?
Well, it kind of depends on who's playing that role. If it's an individual, they could find themselves in maybe some chronic conclusion. Like maybe it's at work or with family. Usually it's something a little more professional, what have you. And they can't quite figure out the reason this keeps reoccurring. So those folks may reach out. Usually kind of what happens is we almost have to be put in front of them, whether some direct or indirect way. Thus, we're dealing with some hierarchical leadership who, their job is to kind of see the big picture, and they realize they could use influence in certain areas. So they bring us in. We work first with them because leaders lead. So you're the leader, and there's a difference between management and lead. You manage machines, you lead people. Yeah. So some people think they're leaders, but really they're just managing a system. So we have to kind of teach that first. Then we start working our way into this hierarchy of systems, and eventually finding those places of influence. So I think it starts with someone at or near a top, whether it's a business, let's just use that as an example, who kind of sees the greater purpose. And then they employ these people to move energy in that direction. Right. And so it kind of starts with them.
How does someone know, Charles, who the right life coach for them is or for their business?
A lot of that is just doing what we're doing here. We just have a lot of time and exchange. We're asking curious questions constantly, just asking to draw out the best conclusion, even if the best conclusion is, I don't know yet. Okay, well, we're here to help you find that as well, not tell you. You have to find it, because it's just like giving a kid something that they didn't earn. Well, then they might not fully appreciate it, but boy, when they conclude it, they'll never let it go. And so I think that's probably partly how that works.
Okay. And Robert, how does a life coach help someone that feels stuck in their life or stuck in their marriage?
Well, that is a very big question.
It is.
Because those two are not very much the same thing, but they're related. So typically through a very much interview process just like this, and we never really tell anyone anything. Everything we do, it comes in the form of a question with the hope of inspiring. Most people know. Most people know the answers. Most people know where they want to be, how they want to get there, and what they're willing to do in the process. But what they need often is someone to challenge them to acknowledge it, someone to challenge them to commit to it, someone to, as Chuck said, educe from inside of them the answers that they know are right, but to let them say it out loud, to give them a place where they can safely acknowledge the truth about their circumstances, because oftentimes they've been lying to themselves so long they don't know where to find the truth that lies within them. So often I know that for myself, there were things in my life that I hid from myself because I believed it was part of my identity, and I believe that's actually a common thing. Especially in individuals, and even in relationships, we believe that, well, that's just the way it is. That's just the way our marriage is. That's not true. It's only that way because you're unwilling to take the action and be committed to make the change. The change starts with you first. So then we challenge those paradigms, those methods of thought, and and hope to create new patterns, new habits, with a few other methods that come into play. We've got some interesting techniques that seem to be very effective. But I mean, that's pretty much it. The questions and interview and challenging them to acknowledge and admit the truth.
Does your clients ever get tired of y'all asking questions? Because it seems like that's like the basis of everything y'all do is ask questions.
Are you tired of us asking questions?
No.
Steve, just said it again.
Right.
I know.
I mean, I'm sure there's moments where they're just like, give me a minute.
Yeah.
Let me catch up to the, and we have to learn to work the room a little bit. But what's interesting is they almost always come back. Even if, we kind of run out of time and if they need to go home and, go check on the other important things in their life, out of nowhere, Rob's phone might ring like, hey, you got a minute? And like, yeah, well, what do they want? More. And so they really do. Now, it's kind of like I can only eat so much pie in one city and I need to just space this thing out a little bit.
Right.
But sure. That I understand that, there's nothing wrong with that, as it goes. But that I do believe that, and if there's people who are listening you may find yourself in some management or leadership position, if you truly understand that there's very few businesses, if any, really, that don't rely on the human resource experience. That and the resources, the people that and people are vulnerable. People have emotions.
Right.
And what are emotions? Emotions are just byproducts of our understandings, whatever limit that is. Whether I'm keep hitting the ceiling of understanding or whether I've learned to blow through it. Well, all of a sudden my emotional state gets better and better. So a lot of times when we come in, there is a limit. And one of my favorite questions to get to ask people of any level of employment is, how did you, or marriage, you mentioned that earlier, how did you learn to do this? Where'd you go learn to be married? Yeah. And people were like, oh, wow. And I said, it's funny. They'll go, was there a class? I go, maybe. I don't know. Likely not. Where did you go? And then they'll start referencing their history. And that's when they begin to realize I'm repeating problems.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And same with a person in a position, whether it's a team lead or a true executive director, or maybe an owner. It could be, they're not exempt either for looking back and thinking, I'm just doing it the way my dad did. Oh, how was that? Oh, man. And so then now they're ready. Sometimes it's just a simple question like that.
Okay, so my final question for both of you will be the exact same question. So Charles, you first. What is your intention? What is your goal in this space of helping people pursue their purpose and their passion?
My goal globally, if you will, is to help every person that I come in contact with have, in some smaller or more magnificent way, have this transforming experience to be the best possible person that they can be for themselves and for those that matter most to them, starting with hopefully their creator and definitely the one the creator gave them. And if I can do that in some small way, whether it is a compliment or confrontation, if I have to help them see things front to front, really, I like to think that is my more noble purpose.
And Robert, what about you? What is your intention? What is your goal in this space of helping people find their purpose and their passion?
Well, my purpose in setting out into this space, as you call it, was to create a cultural shift, a complete shift of thought and direction for our culture. And I don't just mean U.S., globally, as you said, but we participate in a culture of victims mentality, not my fault. As we talked about earlier, the microwave mentality, give it to me now. I don't want to earn it. I deserve it. I'm entitled to it. We have this entitlement mentality. And I want to be an agent of a catalyst of change to create a new mentality, a mentality of purposeful direction and creation, lifelong learners, people who maintain a curious spirit and attitude, people who want to give, want to build others up, want to see this crazy thing we call life be a space for growth for everyone. There are no limits to wealth. There are no limits to success. There is no limit on life. Why can't we give that spirit to each other? Why can't we reach over and with our talents, ability, and the things that we're gifted with, why can't we fit that with someone else and help them with their life and them do it the same to us? How far could we go if we saw each other as valuable instead of competition? How far could we go if we focused on giving what we have inside instead of taking what the other person has?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want a cultural shift.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Robert, for joining me on this podcast. It has been amazing. I've learned so much. And more than anything, I really appreciate how you guys help me unpack my thinking when it comes to really the death of my father, because my entire life I've thought that, that same way. But in an hour, you guys. So thank you. Thank you both very much. And to my audience, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. You can get Charles and Robert's podcast on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Come on, let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petrie.